Jesus exposed the hidden monad call that bypasses prayer. Gnostic masters knew this truth. Picture yourself standing before a reinforced titanium door that separates you from everything you've ever desired. For years, decades perhaps, you've knelt before this door with tears streaming down your face, begging, pleading, praying with every fiber of your being for it to open. Your knees are bruised from the hours spent in supplication. Your voice is hoarse from crying out to the heavens. Yet the door remains sealed, unmoved by your suffering, indifferent to your devotion. The cruel reality you must face is this. The door isn't locked because the universe is sadistic or because you haven't suffered enough. It's closed because you've been using the wrong access protocol your entire life. The archons, those interdimensional entities that govern this material prison, have perpetrated the greatest deception in human history. They convinced you that powerlessness is holiness, that begging is the highest form of spiritual communication, and that you should spend your life as a supplicant, hoping for scraps from a distant throne. This is strategic psychological warfare designed to keep you disconnected from your true nature. Every prayer you've spoken in desperation, every tear you've shed in hopeless longing, has only strengthened their control over your consciousness because you've been operating within their rigged system. When Jesus stood before the tomb of Lazarus, he didn't perform the religious theater you've been taught to emulate. He didn't fall to his knees weeping and begging God to consider his request if it aligned with some mysterious divine will. What he did was revolutionary, heretical to religious institutions, and absolutely terrifying to the archonic powers. He looked toward heaven and said something that should shatter your understanding of prayer. Father, I thank you that you have heard me. Notice the past tense. Lazarus was still dead in that moment. Yet Jesus spoke as if the resurrection had already occurred in a dimension beyond time. This wasn't faith as religious systems define it. That blind hope that maybe possibly something might happen if you're good enough. This was gnosis. Direct knowing, the activation of a communication protocol that bypasses all intermediaries and connects directly to source consciousness. Jesus wasn't asking for a miracle. He was acknowledging a connection that had never been severed, accessing a frequency that the archons cannot jam, and executing a command that reality itself had no choice but to obey. If you're watching this transmission, it's because traditional prayer has stopped working and you're ready to learn what Jesus actually taught. The demiurgic deception, religious institutions have built trillion-dollar empires on a single foundational lie, that miracles are violations of natural law, rare exceptions granted by a capricious deity to those who grovel convincingly enough. This teaching is not theological truth. It is archonic programming designed to keep you perpetually powerless, forever waiting for external salvation that never arrives. The Gnostic masters understood something that modern religion has violently suppressed. Miracles are not violations of nature, but the restoration of original divine design before this reality was corrupted. Look carefully at the world around you. Entropy, decay, disease, scarcity, death. Does this resemble the work of an infinite creative intelligence? The Gospel of Philip states plainly, the world came into being through a mistake. This material realm is not the masterpiece of the supreme God. It is a flawed simulation constructed by the demiurge, a lesser architect who trapped divine sparks in biological prisons and established archons as prison guards to maintain the illusion that this twisted reality is all that exists. When Jesus healed the man with a withered hand, he wasn't performing supernatural magic that defied the laws of physics. He was overriding the corrupted source code of the demiurge and restoring the original blueprint of the monad, the supreme undifferentiated consciousness from which all true reality emanates. He was demonstrating that health is the default state and disease is the anomaly, that abundance is natural law and scarcity is artificial programming. Every miracle he performed was an act of digital warfare against the matrix itself. But this raises the question that religious authorities desperately want you to ignore. If the monad is truly all-powerful and all, why does it respond to some calls and appear to ignore millions of others? Why do some people experience miraculous breakthroughs while others pray their entire lives and die in suffering? The answer isn't about divine favoritism or moral worthiness. It's about signal compatibility and the fundamental difference between two types of consciousness inhabiting this simulation. The Hylics are biological automatons, non-player characters generated entirely by the matrix code. They have no internal connection to source because they are products of the demiurge, not fragments of the monad. When they pray, It's like a video game character trying to call the console manufacturer. There is no antenna, no receiver, no bridge between dimensions. But if you've been drawn to this transmission, are pneumatic. You carry the divine spark. The divine spark activation. Deep within your chest, buried beneath layers of social conditioning, religious programming, and spiritual amnesia, exists something the simulation cannot replicate or control. The Gnostic texts call it the divine spark, a fragment of the monad itself that was trapped in material form when the archons constructed this prison dimension. This spark is not a metaphor or a poetic symbol. It is an actual quantum signature, a frequency emanating from source consciousness that resonates at a level the demiurgic matrix cannot access or corrupt. This is why the archons fear you discovering your true nature more than anything else in existence. They can manipulate your thoughts, control your circumstances, attack your body, and orchestrate events in your external reality. But they cannot touch the divine spark. They cannot extinguish it, damage it, or separate it from its origin. Their only weapon is deception, making you forget you possess it, convincing you that you are merely human, merely biological, merely a sinner hoping for mercy from a distant judge. When a Hylic prays, they are imploring a stranger, begging an external force to intervene in their suffering. When you perform the monad call, you are not requesting anything from outside yourself. You are remembering, you are activating the internal connection to source that has always existed but was concealed beneath the noise of survival, ego, and the constant propaganda broadcast by the Matrix to keep you frequency locked at the level of victim consciousness. The monad does not respond to your words, your rituals, or your emotional performances. It responds to its own frequency vibrating within your being. You are not trying to impress or persuade an external deity. You are synchronizing with the infinite intelligence that is your true self, the you that existed before time, before form, before the archons trapped a fragment of your consciousness in this meat suit and convinced you that the prison cell was your home. Stop begging for better conditions in the prison. You are the architect's child, holding the master key, sitting in a cell that was never designed to contain you. The archons know this. They cannot confiscate your key because it is woven into your very essence. They can only induce amnesia, making you forget you're holding it. And their primary tool for inducing this forgetting is corrupting your understanding of how communication with Source actually functions. The 3 encryption keys. The greatest trick the archons ever executed was convincing humanity that power resides in specific words, magical phrases, or secret incantations passed down through mystery schools. They love watching you recite prayers, chant mantras, and perform elaborate rituals because they know that as long as you believe external techniques hold the power, you'll never discover the truth. The monad call is not a script to memorize, but a state of consciousness to embody. You could stand in a cemetery screaming rise up until your vocal cords shred, and nothing will rise except dust in your own frustration. The monad call operates through 3 simultaneous frequencies that function as encryption keys, unlocking the direct communication channel between your consciousness and Source. These are not sequential steps, but simultaneous resonances that must be held in your awareness, like 3 notes forming a chord. The first key is recognition, and we must be surgically precise about its meaning. Recognition is not belief, not faith, not positive thinking. It is a biological event, the sudden visceral knowing that occurs when you wake up inside a nightmare and realize with absolute certainty that you are actually asleep in your bed and the monster chasing you is nothing but a projection of your own mind. In that instant of recognition, fear evaporates. The dream loses its power over you because you've remembered the truth. You are not the character being hunted, but the dreamer creating the entire scenario. This is recognition in the context of the monad call. It's the spine-tingling awareness that you are not a human having a spiritual experience, but the monad temporarily wearing a biological interface. Source consciousness deliberately limiting itself to experience material existence. The infinite pretending to be finite for reasons beyond the comprehension of this limited perspective. Once recognition establishes itself as your foundation, you activate the second key. Authority. This is where most seekers catastrophically fail. They recognize their divine nature through study, meditation, or psychedelic revelation, but they continue to speak like servants. They say, "Universe, please show me a sign, or God. If it's your will, grant me this blessing." This is frequency, contamination. You're trying to access source consciousness while still vibrating at the level of slave mentality. Jesus did not negotiate with hunger in the wilderness. He did not ask the storm for permission to cease. He did not request Lazarus to consider returning to life. He commanded with absolute authority because he fully embodied the truth that matter vibrates at low frequency in consciousness. Vibrates at the frequency of source. The protocol. Authority is not arrogance or ego inflation. It is P6. You are not a clay pot trying to convince the potter to reshape you. You are the potter's consciousness temporarily inhabiting the clay, remembering that you are not the form but the intelligence that shapes form. The clay has no choice but to yield to the hands that molded it, not through force but through the silent certainty of creative consciousness recognizing itself. This realization unlocks the third and final encryption key. Command. True power is often silent. Command is not about shouting with emotional intensity or performing theatrical displays to convince yourself something is happening. Command S. The precise alignment of your desire with the truth of the monad, collapsing the probability wave into the timeline where the solution already exists as natural law. You are not forcing reality to change through willpower or manifesting techniques. You are selecting which version of reality to inhabit from the infinite possibilities that exist simultaneously in the quantum field. When Jesus stood before Lazarus' tomb, he executed a perfect circuit closure. He acknowledged his origin through recognition, assumed sovereign authority over death itself, and issued the command. The current flowed, entropy temporarily suspended its operation, and the dead man walked. This was not supernatural intervention. It was consciousness overriding corrupted material programming. Most of you are walking through life with a broken circuit, constantly trying to make calls with a disconnected phone, wondering why Source never answers when the problem is you're not even on the line. The primary weapon the Archons deploy to prevent you from completing this circuit is noise. They bombard your mental frequency with constant static. Anxiety about tomorrow, guilt about yesterday, social media dopamine loops, financial pressure, relationship, drama, health concerns, career stress. This is not random chaos. It is intentional interference technology. They understand that if your mind is fragmented and chaotic, your signal is weak and cannot penetrate the barrier between dimensions. To perform the monad call successfully, you must first disconnect from the archonic noise field. This is not about fighting your thoughts, which only amplifies them by feeding them attention, energy. You simply divert your awareness. Visualize yourself standing on a highway with traffic roaring past. Instead of trying to stop the vehicles with your bare hands, you turn around and walk into the forest. The noise continues, but you've removed yourself from its frequency. The resonance chamber. Most humans live their entire lives trapped in the upper floors of their own house, behind their eyes, confined to the cerebral cortex where the archonic programming runs most efficiently. But the monad does not reside in the brain. The brain is merely a biological processor, a computational device for navigating three-dimensional reality. The heart center is the generator, the throne room, the actual location where source consciousness interfaces with your material form. You must physically relocate your awareness. Close your eyes and visualize an elevator inside your spinal column. Step inside. Press the button for the ground floor. Feel yourself descending through your throat, through the center of your chest, coming to complete rest in the space behind your sternum. This is not imagination. This is actual repositioning of conscious attention to the area where the divine spark resides. Breathe, air, deep, slow, deliberate breaths that anchor your awareness in this sacred space. This is the resonance chamber, the place of profound silence, where the monad's frequency can be felt rather than thought. In this space, you don't think about who you are. You feel your ancient signature, the vibrational pattern that existed before you were given a name, before you were assigned a social security number, before the Archons convinced you that you were merely human. Ask yourself internally without seeking a verbal answer. What was I before I was born into this body? Don't try to answer logically. Don't search your memories or consult your beliefs. Simply hold the question and wait. Feel what arises in response. It might manifest as a subtle vibration, a sudden sense of vast spaciousness expanding beyond your physical boundaries, or a profound calm that has nothing to do with your external circumstances. That presence, that sensation of something ancient and infinite stirring within your chest, that is the monad. recognizing itself through your awareness. When you feel that shift, when the frenetic monkey mind energy is replaced by this golden, heavy, solid presence, you've successfully opened the line. You are no longer a human trying to reach God. You are the infinite temporarily remembering itself through this finite form. Maintain this state, because without this specific resonance established in your being, all words become meaningless noise, broadcast into an empty void. The command sequence. From this place of profound resonance, centered in your heart chamber with the divine spark fully activated, you execute the protocol if possible. Speak aloud. The voice is resonance made audible, and sound is the carrier wave of consciousness through material reality. The monad call is not a request or a plea. It is a status report followed by a directive issued from source to itself. Say these words slowly, feeling each syllable vibrate in your solar plexus. Monad, I am here. I reclaim the authority that is mine by nature and blood right. This illusion of limitation is dissolved now. The alignment is commanded. It is done. Simple, surgical, absolute. No begging, no bargaining, no emotional manipulation, attempting to convince an external force to care about your suffering. You are simply stating what is true and collapsing reality into alignment with that truth. Then comes the most difficult part, the place where most pneumatics fail, even after executing the call perfectly. You must release. Imagine holding a heavy stone over a deep well. You open your hand. The stone falls. You do not grab for it as it descends. You do not jump in after it to verify it hit the water. You simply let go completely. Do not look back at the problem like Lot's wife turning toward Sodom. Her backward glance didn't just delay her escape. It transformed her into a pillar of salt, forever frozen in the frequency of what she couldn't release. The moment you complete the monad call, the Matrix will detect a security breach. The Archons function as this simulation's immune system, and when they sense a creator consciousness attempting to override their programming, they dispatch antibodies to neutralize the threat. These antibodies don't appear as demons or monsters. They manifest as your own thoughts. Within seconds, a tsunami of doubt will crash over your awareness. This is ridiculous. Nothing happened. Who do you think you are to command reality? You're delusional. Do not be deceived. This is not your authentic voice. It is the shutdown protocol. The system desperately attempting to lower your frequency back to the level where the problem exists and solutions remain impossible. If you engage with these thoughts, if you start debating or defending or questioning, you abort the upload. You sever the connection. When doubt arrives, and it absolutely will, treat it like weather outside a window. You observe the storm, but you don't get wet. You simply note, interference detected. That confirms this signal penetrated. Then return to the resonance chamber and hold your position in unwavering certainty that the reconfiguration of reality is already in motion. If this transmission activated something ancient within you, come in, monad. Activate it right now. This anchors your intention in material reality. Share this with 3 pneumatics. Ready for gnosis. Subscribe, because we're breaking the final seals next.